Mhm. Hi, thanks for joining us today. I'm Ivory and this is Roz. And today's topic is Oracle and Tarot cards. Before we start with that, hello to our listeners in Greeley, Colorado. As soon as I saw this Greeley, Colorado audience building, I thought, that's where one of my best friends lives. So hello, Patty. Maybe she's spreading the word. I don't know. I love Greeley. I lived in Colorado for almost 5 years. A long time ago. Absolutely love it. I have a lot of ties there. It's beautiful, beautiful in Greeley. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your support of this show. So let's talk about the differences between oral cards and tarot cards. Now, I'm told Roz, this is a topic that was requested by a listener, and they had some specific questions about it. So that's why we're kind of focusing on that. Now, this is not necessarily my opinion. This is sort of just like what's out there about the differences. Oracle cards hold a bigger energy and give an insight into a greater sense of what is going on, and tarot cards are a bit more detailed. Tarot cards are like pages to a book, and each card is one page telling the story, whereas you could look at oracle cards are like the whole chapter. So they differ in a lot of ways, the main difference being that tarot cards follow a very specific structure and typically contain 78 cards. Oracle cards have no set structure, and you can vary in the number of cards each deck contains. With tarot, once you learn the meaning of the major and minor arcana and the suits, you'll be able to interpret and recognize almost any tarot deck. But oracle cards tend to be very straightforward, and some have the meanings written on the front of the cards. Oracle cards will vary completely from deck to deck, and I'm going to show you some examples. And sometimes they will have a theme, sometimes not. They both oracle and tarot cards have the same purpose and intention for divination and to get clarity around a situation. Both types of cards can be worked with intuitively, and both tend to have a variety of symbols and imagery to help stimulate your psychic senses. Both of them are used in spiritual practices or coaching sessions to gain clarity and insight around situations. They both act as a mirror of the current energy. They reflect the truth of your situation and point out possible ways forward. So think of reading the cards as a conversation with a trusted mentor or your higher self. And this is if you're pulling them for yourself. There's no judgment or negative or positive messages. It's just the truth, the situation, an observation, I like to say. Don't take the judgment out of it. There's only the reflection of energy and an opportunity to find a way forward through self-knowledge and an understanding of circumstances. I will say, I think when people who do tarot told me that when they pull their cards, they sometimes have an easier time pulling it for themselves than having someone pull it for them, because sometimes it does put the message like right in your face. And I think that's true in a psychic reading. So, whether you used oracle cards or not, if the psychic reader is a good one and truthful, they're going to tell you things you don't want to hear. They're going to tell you things you'd rather not know or know about yourself or face, because that's part of their job, is to tell you the truth. So, maybe you want to practice this for yourself. I know Roz does not use cards of any kind. She really doesn't like cards. And that's totally fine. Each thing's for different people. I will say oracle cards, again, vary in many themes. I'm an angel girl, so mine are pretty much almost all angels, but I'm going to show you a couple different things. And as it comes to tarot cards, almost all of them are based off what they call the Rider-Waite deck, which follows the archetypal images created by Pamela Coleman Smith way back in 1909, and under the direction of a guy called Arthur Edward Waite. And so there's some variation going forward in time, but they all are based on that. Oracle cards are free-flowing in imagery, color, symbolism, theme, and messaging. There's just no rules or prescribed structure. So tarot is part of an ancient tradition of divination. Oracle cards are more modern. That's okay. Tarot takes time to learn and develop, and oral cards are more beginner friendly. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. I think we should start with oracle cards. Roz, do you have any experience with oracle cards whatsoever?
The only experience that I have is I have friends who use them, who will be wanting to pull a card, and I'll be really open for that because I do think that they strongly stimulate a person's natural intuitive ability. So if I have a friend or one of my kids, who's wanting to use their oracle cards with me, I find them to be very accurate. So I trust them because I think they're bringing forth the same information. It just come in a different format.
I think some people like to use them because it relaxes them. It feels, we were talking about this before the show started today, and I think it's an important topic. There's some people who use them far beyond when they need them, thinking they need them, like a crutch, but they've developed their intuitive ability to the point where they really don't need cards at all. I know I've been there for a long time. Like, I use the oracle cards generally because people like me to use cards. And I usually don't even mention I'm using them unless something comes up that I get a big psychic hit about, and I thought I should show them, or I knew it would make them really happy to see that card came up and that I get a hit about it. Otherwise, I don't even tell them. And I don't always use them. But I think they do give a lot of people, especially in the beginning, some comfort to have cards of some sort. Like, they think
for the
it guides them.
clients, it's much more comfortable in many ways to feel like there is a tool
Yes.
that the intuitive is using to bring that information in. Because over the years, I've had a lot of people come into my office, and I will say from the beginning, this is a reading of, it's just what's called a cold reading. I don't use any tools at all. I do say a prayer and affirmation. I ask for your information, but I'm not using any other tools. And some people don't feel comfortable with that. They're convinced that information is being sent from someplace scary. And I'm just like, it's not, because it's coming from your guidance. I mean,
and maybe it's because the first reading they ever had was a card reading. And so they think that's how it's supposed to be. I don't really care. It's the reason that I instituted using them is because when Roz and I were working at a psychic center, when we met, there was so many tourists coming through there. And that's when I really realized I hadn't worked in a place like that before. And I didn't realize how many people really wanted a tool. So this is the deck of oracle cards I use 99% of the time. It's called Angels of Atlantis. Don't know why. It has nothing to do with Atlantis. It's an angelic card set, oracle cards. And so, for instance, this one's Archangel Jophiel, and the word at the bottom is forgiveness. That's the only writing on these cards. That's one of the things I love about oracle cards is there's very little writing, sometimes none on them. When you are a psychic, when you do have your intuitive sense developed, to me, it's a distraction. It's like somebody you're picking up that you're going to meet somebody and some annoying person to the left, little buzzing going, no, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. And that's the card, like interfering with the intuitive information I'm receiving, which I trust far more than a card. So a lot of times I'm pulling a card, and, if a client's with me in person, which I don't do a whole lot in person anymore, but if they're with me in person, I'm going to fan them out and they're going to run their fingers over them. They're going to pull the cards. So I like them to have the control, and they're going to pull the card that feels right. There's no wrong. Archangel Michael, the word at the bottom is enchantment. So that happens to be one of the few cards in the deck that almost always does end up meaning something. And that particular card usually means either you're not seeing something you need to see, something's being hidden from you. So I can't think of a time that somebody pulled this card or I pulled it for them in a virtual session and I didn't get that psychic hit and know. And so immediately I'm going to look at psychically, is it that there's something they're not looking at they need to see, or something being hidden, and go from there. And inevitably that's what it is. But most of them do not mean something specific. The majority of these cards do not mean something specific to me, and it doesn't always. There is no always. I'll show you this is a set of cards that's not or angel cards. Oh my gosh, it's one of the few I have that's not. This is the past life oracle cards. And I only use these for past life readings where I ask the angels to, let's be shown a few lifetimes that are important to the person in this lifetime. So that's how I would use that. And let's say this one says scribe or writer. And then I'm going to look psychically at what is it? What's an important lifetime they had where they were a writer of some kind, and how is that important in their current life? But you can see, like, here's the wisdom card. Again, there's imagery and very little writing on them. So that's one that has nothing to do with angels. This one's a little bit, I like Doreen Virtue cards. So this is a daily guidance from your angels. I really like a deck like this. Doesn't have to be this deck. But when you want to start using oracle cards, you want to explore them, you're going to be pulling cards for yourself. That's what this deck is for. So it's daily guidance from your angels, oracle cards. And so with these cards, it's got a lot more writing on it. And this one, for instance, says change of direction, and see all the writing underneath that.
Yeah.
So these are kind of fun. Like in the beginning, when you're pulling cards for yourself, a deck like this that's designed to give you a personal message, you pull one or a couple every day. And before you do it, you might ask your angels, if you're into angels like I am, you ask your angels, please, guide my hand towards a card that's going to help me today. What's going to help me with my life today? And pull a card. Here's one, acceptance. So it's things that are about personal, spiritual growth. This one's about the ocean, and it's about your soul. So I don't make money from selling cards. That is not my point here, but I just wanted you to see, like, there's such a variety of oracle cards. And I even have, I'm just going to say, when I'm teaching intuition to people, there's a set of cards I used before that, which I'll talk about another time, that has no words at all on it and very abstract pictures, because it makes you start using your intuition, not relying on a card. And that's what I started with, and probably why I didn't use cards for years, till I was working where Roz was, and like, okay, these people want a tool. So I started using them. And so I like I said, I use them that way. It's not a card reading, but cards are involved so that people see there's a tool. And and especially if they ask, like, I have a lot of people ask me if love is coming into their life. And there is a card in there that has love on it, and it'll make them really happy. I'll show that one if I pull it, because it's going to make them happy that I pulled that card. If they're asking if they're going to have children, there's one card in the whole deck that has a baby on it. And that usually is directly about their question. I'll show them that card, but otherwise it's just not a card reading. Other people do it a different way. I can only tell you the way I do it. That's it. So I have tons of experience with oracle cards, and I'll just tell you, neither Roz or I do tarot. We never have. Now, we had a friend who was working with us for a while who did tarot readings, and she did a tarot reading for me through I think, remember, we went to that party at an Airbnb, and she did a tarot reading. She used the entire deck, but it was kind of a whirlwind. I can't remember anything from that reading, but and because Roz and I don't do tarot, I actually had to borrow a tarot deck, and my friend dropped these off, but there's no box with them, so I don't know what set it is. But this is one of the cards. They're pretty simple. She said it's a classic deck. So there's no writing on them on that one. This one, King of Pentacles, which we'll talk about that. I'll try to get it where you can see it. There we go. When I have a background, it makes it hard to show cards. So they're pretty simple. They're colorful. This one says strength. These aren't probably going to mean a darn thing to you until we start going through some of this information. The difference. Oracle cards don't have a specific meaning for each card. Every tarot deck, every card in a tarot deck has its own unique meaning. And when you know what each tarot card means, you can understand the messages and advice that you're receiving. So There are 78 cards that begin with what they call the major arcana and the minor arcana. The major arcana are 20 cards that begin with the Fool and follow his journey as he meets and collides with every facet of human existence, from the magician, death, the tower, and finally the world. And I did not know that, and that's very interesting. Within the minor arcana, cards contain 16 tarot court cards representing that, typically face cards, and these are 16 different characters that may be expressed. The minor arcana includes 40 cards that follow in suites of swords, which is representing air, pentacles, earth, wands, fire, and cups, water. These numbered cards have 10 in each suit, represent situations that you might encounter in your daily life rather than major turning points that the major arcana tend to represent. So you need to learn the meanings of these cards. It takes time and practice, dedication. A really good tarot reader would have all of that memorized and know what everything means, and it's just very detailed. So once you enter a regular practice, you need to remember it's crucial to regularly cleanse your tarot cards. So I thought we'd talk about the major arcana. Those are the ones that are major turning points in your life. And I picked a couple that people tend to have a misunderstood idea about what it means. Again, the major arcana tarot cards reveal messages about the big picture of your life and its long-term direction. So let's talk about the Fool, because that's where the journey starts. And people think, oh, they're calling me a fool. No, that's not it. So the upright, if it's upright, it matters if it's upright, reverse, which is upside down, and then there's another position we'll talk about. So this is the upright. So if you're dealt this card to yourself or someone deals it to you and it's upright, it means that you're a person driven by base needs and urges who has fallen into a state of poverty and deprivation. Now, in earlier instances, that Fool was made out to be a carnival entertainer or a huckster. In others, he's portrayed as decrepit and vulnerable, as like a cumulative result of his delusions and failures. It's not until the 20th century do you see the popular image of the Fool, like a court jester, arise, that of an innocent soul before its fall into matter, untainted by contact with society and all its ills. So the Fool reminds you to recognize the path of personal development within ourselves, all that being said, and the stage upon that path where you find yourself in order to energize your movement towards deeper self-realization. So at the root of all that is a very spiritual message to you. Pay attention to your spiritual side, work on it. Now, the reversed meaning is different. So that's if you get it upside down. When the Fool card is reversed, you are encountering an unfinished side of yourself, a part still caught in the shadows of ignorance or immaturity. An emotional reflex or psychological attitude could be holding you back from responding authentically and naturally. So it's telling you, release yourself from any dogmas or taboos so your natural truthfulness and instinct for right action can be restored. And I told you there's a third position, and this was all new to me. I'm like, this is fascinating. It's called the advice position, and I had to look that up. It means it's the fourth card in a 5-card spread. So you're going to lay 5 cards out, and the fourth card is your advice position. So if the Fool is in that fourth card of a 5-card spread, it advises that you lighten up. Let yourself be spontaneous enough to stretch beyond the realm of logic. I think this is for all those true skeptics out there. There is no advantage to be gained by thinking you possess the knowledge, power, or control to direct reality. Open and receive without question instead of trying to manage what's happening right now. The Fool has no ambition to manipulate a specific outcome. Just be happy to be part of the whole. Release any demands or expectations and give your complete attention to events as they're occurring in the present moment. The most misunderstood card in the entire tarot deck, we have to address that. Can you guess what that is, Roz?
The Sword.
The Death card.
Oh,
There's people like in movies, like in scary movies, somebody gets a tarot reading, they get the Death card. Dun, dun, dun. And it's like, oh my God, no. And they run out of the tent, No, that's not what it means. So in the upright meaning, the Death card is not about the literal death of any person. It can represent the death of something else, like a project, a plan, or a relationship. It means an ending.
An ending, yeah.
Yeah. And I was so relieved. Years ago, I found that out. I don't remember who, because I don't know very many tarot readers, but I found that out. And I'm like, well, that is a relief, because back then I used to watch horror movies, but not anymore. So the death card also points to a time of harvest, symbolized in classical decks by the reaping skeleton. So the end of growing season, time to harvest. Unless the fruits of summer are harvested, they are lost to winter's harshness, and the people don't get to eat. That's a bad thing. And as the scythe cuts the cords that link us to the past, it liberates us to go forward without fear, because we have nothing left to lose. Oh, I like this. Everything being pruned away is recycled for the fertility of the future, so that nothing is ever really lost despite seasonal cycles of gain and loss. In more modern decks, you see death is mounted on a horse and wearing black armor. And the emphasis in those decks is on the punishment of sin, as in like the medieval plague, which the death image is based on, was used to explain the wrath of God. But luckily, in modern times, we know about bacteria, and we are not so encumbered with such a guilt-ridden philosophy, at least not most of us. The reversed meaning of the death card, so it'd be upside down, suggests you might long for a cord to be cut, but unfortunately you must persist and endure without the relief of an ending at this time. It's not time for termination and closure yet. Heck, that's a question that comes up a lot in psychic readings is it time to end my marriage? Should I end this friendship? Should I leave this job? And sometimes the answer I get is no. So I think that's the equivalent of this. You have to be patient with current circumstances without resigning yourself to a negative outcome. Coming changes might alter the way you feel about the status quo. And remember, harvest doesn't start until the fruit is ripe. You might think you're ripe, but you're not ripe. Work at becoming wiser and more mellow, sweeter and more nourishing, and your time of release might happen sooner. We know, Roz, we've talked about so many times, and we tell our clients how timelines shift based on everything you and everyone involved does or doesn't do.
Yeah.
So I see some similarity here.
I think opening the door to that concept is really good for people, because I always tell people, when you're doing and you're accessing this information and you're moving through your life and you're doing all kinds of different things and activities, you have to be open to the concept that, everything is not etched in stone. It's not. It's
No.
very, we have we are allowed to have a will. We are allowed to make choices. As we make those choices, that's shifting the outcomes. And I think, having some open mentality to that is really helpful for people. And it's real.
I do too, because even though we plan our lives before we come in, not every single detail of it is planned. We can't control everything. We have to learn. It comes back to that divine time again. So that card is a lot about divine timing. Mm-hmm. If you get that card in advice position, which again, the 4th card in a 5-card spread, it advises you to detach from the old order. You may want to close accounts, complete unfinished tasks, and gather your harvest. So finish your project, stop procrastinating. It's time to move on. If you cut the cords that have bound you to old ways and outdated conventions, you could free yourself to join the sweep of incoming light. But it's not an excuse to reject others or hurt them in any way. It's simply a time to move toward your ultimate interests. And I like this. Do not allow nostalgia and outworn loyalties to hold you back. Be willing to go through whatever it takes to get where you really want to be. And I think that's
really good advice.
Sometimes we have to let go of old relationships of all kinds, and that includes social groups we were involved in, or hobbies we had, or habits we had, thoughts that we have. I mean, it can just go in any area of your life. And when you are hanging on to something isn't working for you anymore, that's not in your best and highest good. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the wands. Sounds good, doesn't it? Oh, ding. The suit, most often called wands, is sometimes called rods or staves, and it represents initiative ambition, drive, and desire. It is the suit of enterprise and risk-taking. So I just kind of picked a couple at random. 3 of Wands. Why not, right? Upright meaning is inner balance that allows you to feel more optimistic about new endeavors you want to commit to or have committed to. And if it means you need to be patient and trusting, because you'll have to wait some time to find out how things are going to turn out. And meanwhile, a lot of resources are tied up until they return with a bounty. Only those confident in their ideas and abilities would undertake such a risk. This card represents the energy a person needs to take on great adventures and accomplish noble and remunerative deeds. So things that will bring you great riches of some sort. That means different things to different people. That card brings not only opportunity for success, but also an awakening to higher potentials. The reverse meaning, again, upside down, is rest will restore lack of drive and optimism. So if you're not feeling any drive or optimism, you're going through that, I just want to sleep a lot, then you might have overdone things and burned the candle at both ends. Roz and I would know nothing about that. That is a foreign concept to us.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I think I've done that in every career I've had. I'm learning to mellow. Age will do that to you. Give yourself some time to rest and relax. And when you're feeling restored, take another look at existing circumstances, and that'll assure you what prospects are still bright. They are. They're still there. They're still waiting for you, no matter what your immediate setbacks might be. And I think that's kind of, Roz, we've talked about this. Sometimes we just, as psychics, and just the other skills that we have, our gifts, sometimes we have overwhelming tiredness, and we need to sleep more than usual. And I'll go through times when I kind of glad that I'm working from home, because if I need to lay down and take a little nap, I can. If I need to go to bed early, I can. You know, giving into that, your body's telling you it needs some more rest and stress, anything. There's so many things. You don't have to be a psychic or a medium or anything like that to go through those periods. So what about the advice position on that card? It advises you to act quickly and powerfully on an idea or desire you've been feeling. It suggests exquisite timing, staying in the moment, responding to your instinct or intuition. Every fiber of your being might be saying this is a great opportunity, even if those around you are not convinced. There's nothing to lose from taking a risk. It's a great moment in your entrepreneurial growth. Make your move and sort out the details later. That would be a great card to get if you're dithering. Oh, I really want to make this career change. Oh, that's when my friends usually call me and go, Ivory, I got this job offer. Should I take it? I'm going to start giving them tarot card info. No, I'm not. I'll just keep telling them what I get. So the other Wands card I chose was Queen of Wands. In the upright meaning, this card represents a natural manager whose gift is to inspire teamwork and divvy up tasks. They're the one who ensures everything runs smoothly. They'll be sweating in the sun along with their family or crew, inspiring everybody to keep up and supporting morale with infectious energy. Best kind of manager to have, because they like a challenge. They're like a challenging but encouraging mother who knows you have it in you. And she believes in your charges and her charges, and they work very hard to please her. But she's not sentimental. It's kind of like a good farmer in this. I guess that's where the reaping comes in here. She views her crops, her animals, even the people who work for her as necessary resources for the achievement of the higher goal. And if any aspect is no longer productive or cost effective, she can let them go without a second thought. Do not look to her for sympathy. Great manager, no sympathy. Okay, got it. The reversed meaning, upside down, reveal any hidden agendas before they alienate partners or associates. It points to a controlling tendency that is no secret, and the people around you have the insight to perceive what is happening. Don't think your hidden agenda is undetected, and don't deny it if it's brought to light. It's more important your team members trust you than it is to preserve an image. The advice position reveals a need to hold your place in the chain of command and respect the hierarchy, at least for now. This may not be a time for you to be at the helm, even if you're motivated by a strong dedication to completing a project. It may make you want to take hold of the reins, but don't do it. Restrain yourself and remain loyal to your higher up. Stay focused and energetic. The next type is the cups. This stuff is like another language to me. I might as well read in Latin to you. The cups cards represents your emotions, intuition, and relationships. This is probably the one most people are excited about then, because you know how it is with readings. What do you see for me in my love life, right? Am I wrong here, Roz?
Hear that a lot.
Yeah, I get them. The cups can guide you in love and help you understand and process your highest and lowest feelings. So if it's upright, it typically refers to works of the imagination, the use of dream and vision to invent a future different from the life you're currently living. It reminds you outcomes are not set in stone. Here we go again. We agree, not set in stone. You can raise your hopes and expectations and upgrade your results, but don't be fooled by the title fantasy, which that card's sometimes given. That card indicates the truly magical quality of awakened imagination. I think that's another good one for skeptics to get then. There's more to life than what you see. Reversed meaning, a 7 of Cups, reminds you to reawaken to playfulness. Go have fun, joy, curiosity. Perhaps a lack of purpose is having a deadening effect. It's almost as if you've forgotten how to dream, whether it's, like to have dreams for yourself, your life, what it could be. And so your mind and imagination become dry like a desert. And find something that stimulates your endorphins. Take a long walk, breathing deep, buying flowers, whatever. Take that step immediately and relieve yourself of the deadening flatness. That's a good one if you're in a dark night of the soul, I think. The advice position says, relax your mind and open to the dreams and imaginings your inner child loved to entertain. Allow yourself to imagine a truly positive outcome for your situation. That's always a good one. Oh, here's Roz. Your electromagnetic chemistry is stimulated to a point of achieving greater confidence in yourself and in what you're doing. And we know everything in the spiritual world, it's all energy. Even if it's only a temporary break from your fears, this is a helpful exercise because it gives your psyche and body a dose of unlimited thinking and optimism. Think positively. And then Page of Swords. The upright meaning. I will tell you first off, in modern decks, that's shown as a princess, not a page. And so the traditional interpretation of that is a messenger, an emissary, a liaison between separate camps. Because of this role, we do not think of this person as a servant, but rather a diplomat. They're acting as the eyes and ears of their patrons, so they're sometimes referred to as the watchman. Even kings are powerless if this messenger chooses to use her access to sensitive information for her own gain, as is implied by the other name for this card, the spy. She could be working as a double agent, playing both sides against each other. Her title is camouflage in itself. The reversed meaning is that one's critical tendencies are given too much leeway. You might declare a need to state the truth. A primary urge may be to recount another's shortcomings. Analyze your possible prejudice instead of the weakness of others. Bottom line. And the advice position, and it's also a princess in some modern decks, requires subtle change for it to be brought to the highest good for all concerned. Reduce your profile. I wonder if this is about social media, and increase your anonymity, no matter how your self-image might suffer. I think this is a big one in modern times. Although it would be gratifying to accomplish what needs to be done and be above board about it, that cannot be a priority. Not at present. There's another kind called the Pentacles. I'll just tell you what it is. Pentacle cards are associated with work, finances, and domestic life. They can answer questions about your personal goals, money, family, and health. We just don't have time to go through those specific cards. So just real quickly, they say that the easiest kind of cards for beginners to start with between these two is Oracle. And I agree. Because you don't have to memorize the meanings of all these and the positions, because there's 3 things to memorize for each card in a Pentacle deck, in a tarot deck. So consider Oracle cards. You can use them together. Nobody's stopping you. You do what you want. Use both cards together. Use them in, sparingly. Honestly, I keep my oracle cards, a stack of them near my desk, and then the one I use most of the time right here handy. There's one kind of healing session where I pull an oracle card at the beginning of the session that my intention is this is going to represent all three issues you want healed today, something you need to know that ties all that together, maybe an underlying issue. That's just some ideas. So I found a couple websites that I think are really good for how to get started with oracle cards, how to get started with tarot. I will put them in the show description so that you can see them. I'm not expecting you to write down a long URL. And we just hope this gives you a good idea of what oracle and tarot cards are, how they're used in readings, and the differences between them. I want you to know our Patreon page is paused at this time, so this is the full podcast for this week. And next week's topic is exit points. That's going to be a really fun one. I'm excited. We've never talked about that, have we?
That's going to be interesting.
That's another topic by request.
Great ideas.
We get great suggestions. Thank you so much for that. We welcome them because Roz and I have been doing this far longer than the number of episodes you see, because that's just when we started a new series on a different platform. But we've actually been doing this 7.5 years. So it gets hard to come up with topics after all this time.
Very true. We love to have that input.
Yes, please. We welcome it. You can leave a comment. You can reach out by email to us, whatever you like to do. If you're on Patreon, you can leave a suggestion there. That's where we're getting most of them. In the meantime, we hope that you have an enlightening week, and we'll see you next Friday.
Bye-bye.